I'm here today with Travis Grisel, who's one of our solutions architects, as well as Mahendra Chedda, who is our development manager for AWS support and is responsible for building Trusted Advisor. So we've got a good team here, and hopefully we'll give some understanding, some depth to your Trusted Advisor report. So I'm just going to give a quick introduction, and then what we'll do is we'll flip to a live demo. And as I mentioned, just feel free to ask questions throughout. The purpose of this webinar is to give our customers a chance to understand the Trusted Advisor report and ask some detailed questions during the month of March, where we've allowed basically everyone to access their Trusted Advisor report. So just some how, what, whys. What is Trusted Advisor? If you've looked on the website, it's probably self-explanatory right now. But what it is, it's an online service that's offered by AWS Support. So it's part of our support packages, business and enterprise. And what it does is it provides best practice recommendations that will improve the performance, security, and fault tolerance of your application, as well as help you save money. It works by individual checks. So we have 27 checks within 4 categories, so the ones mentioned before. And what we do is we test your AWS application against specific operational criteria. So depending on how you score, we'll give you a recommended action. So the red indicator that you see right there will suggest a follow-up for warnings. This is something you should take interest in, not necessarily a showstopper. And if you're all good, we'll show you green. If the check doesn't apply to you, we'll show you a blue, not applicable. Why do we create Trusted Advisor? So what we really wanted to do is just make sure our customers don't repeat the same mistakes made by others. So in the support organization, we're privy to dealing with a lot of customer issues and problems and complaints. And so what we did is we've taken those learnings and we're basically embodied them in Trusted Advisor, and we're passing them along to our customers through that service. So what it represents actually is years and years of information about services, how best to use them, feedback from customers, things that we learned as the process of growing the platform. And really we wanted to provide that to our customers in an easy to use and understand tool. The second reason is it provides proactive recommendations. So support organizations are typically reactive. Something breaks, I give you a call, you help me fix it. We believe that a lot of issues that customers call us about could actually be headed off early, and with the right proactive messaging and information, customers can take action before they even have a problem and detect those issues and take care of them. So Trusted Advisor provides that proactive level of support that you won't get out of a traditional reactive support organization. So just as an example of how Trusted Advisor can help you, just over the last 90 days, and obviously we'll have some updated stats from our March promotion, but we've seen AWS customers review 135,000 recommendations and actually took action for an estimated savings of about $18 million annualized. So we've got some pretty hard metrics to show that customers are taking direct action based off of the recommendations they're making. Some checks are up to 60, 70%, and some others are lower values. In terms of what happens at the end of March, so I mentioned before, we're making Trusted Advisor available to all AWS customers for this month. And if you want to keep access to it, what you can do is you can just simply sign up for business level support. You can do that through the product page and include the link. Just in case you wanted to follow along and look at your specific report and sort of spawn additional questions, I definitely encourage you to look at your report while we're going through the demo account. How you can get to it, so if you're logged into the console today, you can simply go to the upper right, click on the help, and then the support link. That will take you to the support center, and this is the case management central for AWS support. But we also have a Trusted Advisor widget on the bottom left. And I've included a screenshot on the slide here, but you can see it essentially. This is a roll-up across all the 4 categories. Allows you at a glance, see how you're doing from a TA perspective. And I encourage you to just click on the Manage All Trusted Advisor Checks, and we can drill into each one individually. And as well, if you've taken care of a lot of your checks and you suppress the ones that you don't care about, you can click into individual sections by using the links to the right. And if you don't want to navigate that way, you can just simply type it in. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over to the TA demo. You want me, so I'm going to make Travis the presenter here. And we'll come back at the end to ask specific questions. And I guess throughout, Mahendra and Travis and myself actually will be sort of adding some additional information as he's going through the checks. And again, we encourage you to ask questions.
All right, so it looks like I can't share just my actual window here, so you guys will get to see my whole desktop. Let me just close that here real quick. So this is a Trusted Advisor portal right here. This right here is actually an internal link right now so that we can use any account number that we'd like. We're currently demoing one of our internal accounts just to give you guys a good view of what a normal account might actually look like here. So this is the home page that we'll immediately come to. When you first open this page, one of the things that I'd probably recommend right off the bat is to actually refresh the data. One thing that we've had some customers call in with questions about when you get into the individual checks themselves is saying that doesn't seem quite right. I no longer have that Elastic IP address. And if you actually look at the check, when we jump over there, you can actually see the time that it was actually refreshed at. So usually the first thing that I'd recommend is actually refreshing these all. I'm not going to do it right now. Some of the checks are a little more expensive than others and can take a little time to actually return. But we'll get in and we'll refresh individual checks as we go on. So right here, there's 5 tabs across the top. The initial tab is the summary tab. We have the cost optimizing tab, security, fault tolerance, and performance. Again, you have kind of your icons that Forrest mentioned a few moments ago up at the top with kind of just showing you, green shows that you're probably running within our recommended configuration. Yellow meaning that there's some investigation that we're actually recommending there. You may or may not want to actually take action on that. And then red is a little bit more of a harder recommendation. That there's probably something misconfigured here that you may want to actually take a look at. When we get into those, there may be certain situations where you're not actually concerned with that red check, and we've given the ability to actually suppress those features. And then, as Forrest mentioned, there's the blue icon here, not available. You'll also see that pull up when you're initially refreshing the data, and then you'll kind of see these filter in. So kind of a cool interface here. We've recently redeveloped this. Trusted Advisor, just a little background, started off with literally just 2 or 3 people actually calling up customers, sending out emails with Excel files, letting them know the Trusted Advisor report. So that was about 1.5 years ago at this point, and it's evolved on through a few UI changes and additional functionality. And now we kind of come to where we're at today, which is the different tabs and the ability to kind of roll over these and see the summarized views that we have here today. On the bottom of this page, you can see the recently launched checks. So currently we have about 30 checks in Trusted Advisor. We have, I think, about 100 in the pipeline right now to actually be developed, and we're currently working on those. So one of the things we immediately noticed right off the bat was we need a way to show the recently launched checks so our customers that are coming in and using Trusted Advisor on a weekly basis can actually see these new features. So one of the things you can do here is kind of expand, see the high-level details of that check, and then you can actually click on it and go to the check itself. So we'll kind of run through each of the tabs at this point. The way that we've broken these down, in right now it's 4 categories. We may add more in the future, but it's potentially the people that are in your organization that are going to be concerned with cost optimizing. Maybe it's a different group that's concerned with security, fault tolerance, performance, things like that. So we've tried to break it down in a way that gets to the right audience. Starting on this cost optimizing tab, the first option that we have is EC2 reserved optimization. And I won't go into this check in too much detail, and I'll go through some checks here and there. But this one is definitely pretty interesting. You can see right up at the top that this specific account could save up to $106,000 or 53% of their bill if they were to actually optimize with reserved instances. So if you're a customer today that is running a fairly consistent workload, in other words, your instances are up and running, pretty much 100% of the time, there's really no reason why I would not recommend moving on to RIs. It can save you, as Forrest said, up to 70% in some circumstances, and really lower the cost of your on-demand hourly rates. There's two options there. There's optimizing for 1-year instances, and you can kind of move to this tab. You'll actually see, this customer running in EU West, they have 5 instances in the last month that were of a C1 medium size, 2 that were running on average, and 1 that was in a minimum of 1. So in that specific situation, we've actually determined that they should not purchase any RIs. They wouldn't actually save any money for that. But if you drop down here to the HI1 extra large, a very expensive instance, you can see that we're actually making a recommendation, and they could save up to $733 a month just by making an RI purchase. If you jump over here to the 3-year reserved instance tab, you can see that recommendation actually goes up to $1,200. So pretty significant savings to be had here with reserved instances. More cost optimizing checks, underutilized EC2 instances. This one's interesting where we actually take a look at your CloudWatch metrics, and we look at the CPU utilization over the last 2 weeks or 14 days. At any time, if you have CPU utilization of under 10% for at least 4 of those days, we'll actually recommend that you maybe take action on that to shut down those instances, or leverage some type of auto-scaling groups, maybe lower instances, things like that. All of this is pretty well documented in our EC2 guides, but these are the type of questions where if you want more guidance, you don't really have that comfortability with actually making these changes, this is where you could reach out to our dev support organization as well for more details.
And if you ever want to understand what we're checking against, so you can see Travis has the little info tip hovered up there, but basically it'll give you a short description of what we're doing. Sometimes we'll include links to the documentation, and also at the bottom you'll see the criteria of which we're evaluating the check to. So, if you're ever wondering why is it red, why is it yellow, why is it green, you can just simply hover over that little black eye there.
Yep. And yep, that goes for every check. You'll have the informational icon. You have the download option to actually download XLS format for that specific check. So for instance, with RIs, that'll give you a more detailed daily report of those actual instances and their utilization. And then you have the ability to refresh the individual check. One thing I'd also point out on the information icon, if you see down below where you have the click here and here is highlighted, obviously if you try to scroll over that, that's not going to work. So you can also click on this and expand out, and you can click on this to get more details. So we've tried to make this console as easy to use as possible. As we have, when we get to a point where we have 130 different checks in here, we don't want to have just this huge long page that you have to scroll through and find the check you're looking for. So another thing that we've also given customers the ability to do is just download everything in XLS format. And you can see the different tabs here with all the different checks so that you can kind of more programmatically consume that data. So going through, again, I'm not going to go through every single one, but Elastic Load Balancers, if you're running a web application and you're not using an ELB or an Elastic Load Balancer right now, that's something I'd highly recommend looking at. But another thing that we started to see is customers will clean up their resources behind the ELBs and not actually delete the ELB itself. So this is a check that simply goes through and looks at the fact that you have an ELB sitting here, you're being charged, it's a lower amount, it's $20 a month, but it's an unnecessary charge that you may want to actually clean up. Underutilized EBS volumes, I know myself when I clean up my EC2 instances, I have a habit of leaving the EBS volumes behind. And this is another area where all these $20 and $14 charges combined can add up at the end of the month and increase and inflate your bill definitely more than it needs to be. So the thing that I like to say here is AWS is one of very rare or very few companies that actually go through and tell you how to spend less money on them. And I think that's what's really cool about this tool is we are showing you how to spend less money on AWS and make yourself more fault tolerant and performant. So kind of going over to a different section now, security. I'm not sure of the exact audience we have on today, but this is definitely a little bit more of a hot topic for some of the techies out there. Security group checks. This is a check that goes through and it actually looks at all the security groups in your account, and it compares them with the list that we've initially set up here. So we know that customers are going to need to run port 80. That's obvious. 25, 443, 465. These are common ports to have open publicly. But things that you may not want to have open publicly are ports like FTP 2021, database ports like 1433 and 3306. Definitely not RDP for Windows, so 3389. So these are the type of ports that we go through and we say these should not be open publicly by any means. And this is a situation where maybe it's a honeybox, or a honeypot, excuse me. That's a situation where if you know that you are okay with having this specific box open to the world publicly, 0.0.0.0/0, you can actually go through and you can suppress that individual instance, or excuse me, that individual port on that security group. And after that refreshes, it'll actually move over here to the suppress tab. Now, anytime in the future, if you change your mind about that, you can always come back into the suppressed and unsuppress that check. But that's a feature that we listen to customer feedback. We realize that there are some recommendations that we are making that maybe you're running a firewall on that back-end Windows instance, and it is okay to have 3389 open. That's a situation where you can actually go in and suppress that feature.
And other than taking action, that's a way to change your dashboard view and just do the result of the individual check to a green. So essentially, if you just care about things that are different or changing in your environment, you can simply go through and suppress all the checks that have no meaning to you. And what that'll do is, when something does flip from a green to a red or a yellow in the future, you'll notice it, versus just continually being red and yellow on your dashboard, and you're just kind of desensitized to it. Just like your Gmail with 1,000+ emails that are new.
So security group CIDR config, I don't actually have anything to display here for you, but this right here is an interesting one, and this is exactly what Forrest was talking about early on. One of the issues or misconfigurations that I've seen for several years now in AWS is as simple as going through and taking a security group role and opening it up to, say, a specific IP address, 72.131.51.1, with a /0. That /0 is actually is making the rest of that role. I can't think of the right word here right here, but it's ineffective essentially, and it's opening it up to the world. That's the same as opening it up to 0.0.0.0/0. So this is one of those where we went in and we saw a common misconfiguration that customers were making. We initially started calling out to these customers, letting them know about the problem, and this is one of the original checks that we kind of came in with TrustAdvisor at. IAM usage, this simply looks to see if you're using IAM on your account. This, along with MFA en route and IAM password policies, are very good checks. If you're not familiar with IAM right now, that's something I would take a look at. It essentially allows you to add additional users in your AWS account. You can then disable or actually protect your root account with a multi-factor authentication device. And then you can log in and actually log and track those requests with IAM users. Specifically on the password policy, you can configure, similar to a Windows password, where it needs to be a certain number of characters, it needs to have specific letters, numbers, uppercase, things like that.
And just to add on to what Travis just mentioned, right, with IAM, you can give fine-grained access to a specific service, including support. And that's where it's an extremely powerful mechanism of controlling who has access to what.
Particularly if you're a reseller or partner and you've got contractors, it's better to give them a username and password that you can turn off and control their access. So, for example, you want them to open tickets, but you don't necessarily want them to stop instances or launch something new. So IAM is a really great way to lock down your account, and you go further, you can put the multi-factor authentication, or MFA, on it as well. But the ability to give support as a credential or a resource is something you can do in the IAM account.
So last one in security I kind of want to touch on. This is a newer check, and I specifically want to bring this up because this is a check that kind of had some you know, a lot of discussion internally on the best way to actually present this check. And for those who don't know, RDS is our relational database service, where you can run essentially managed MS SQL, MySQL, Oracle in our environment. Don't have to worry about actually taking on the management tasks of that, taking backups, things like that. What we started to see is that customers are very liberal with opening up access to their RDS instances, so allowing 1433 or 3306 publicly, which is probably not something that we would recommend for most customers to do. I would say that it's very rare that customers need to have their database instance open to the world essentially. And really we think that probably should be limited down to individual IP addresses, and you can add more than one IP address in there. But what we've done is kind of taken that a step further and made this check very smart, in that if that RDS security group is associated with an EC2 security group that has open access on port 22, 20, 21, those ports that we identified in the EC2 security group check, that will also flag it as yellow. So it's looking up the stack and at the resources behind that. And the idea there being is that inherently, if your EC2 instance is at more risk to be compromised, the database behind that is at higher risk as well. So this is just one of the things where the checks kind of interact with each other to make smarter recommendations. So moving on to fault tolerance, this is by far our biggest category right now. And I'll kind of breeze through here real quickly. EBS snapshots. EBS is very durable, but we always recommend, for versioning or for the 11.9's of durability that you get with S3, to actually snapshot those volumes up into S3. So this is a check that goes through, and as you can see here, this customer has 20 volumes in their account that do not have a recent snapshot. And you can go through and you get an idea of where this actual volume is attached at. So I can see this is attached to this instance at dev SDA1, meaning that it's a root device. Maybe I don't actually care about the root device because I'm backing that up with an AMI, or I have some other mechanism where data is not actually changing on that, and that can fail at any moment. So again, I could suppress that. On this specific EBS volume down here, this may be one that I'm a little bit more concerned about. If I had gone through and actually given a volume name, I would be able to see exactly what that is. Maybe that data that volume name is MySQL database or whatever it may be. Down here, EC2 availability zone balance, and I'll kind of also move that in with RDS multi-AZ. I believe everybody here is AWS customers have been using this for at least a little while. If you're not currently using multiple availability zones, that's something that as a solutions architect I would highly recommend. And if you ever have any questions about that, reach out to your account manager and set up a time to speak with a solutions architect, or reach out to developer support as well. This is how you build highly fault-tolerant, performant, scalable applications in AWS. By leveraging multiple availability zones will ensure that if at any time an individual availability zone goes down, your application can still continue to run. And this is kind of one of those things where we have our larger customers that we've had issues with availability zones in the past, and it's not something that we expect to happen on any kind of regular basis. But our customers that are building their applications across multiple availability zones are the ones that don't see any issues when we have those individual localized zonal problems. VPN tunnel redundancy. If you're using VPC and you have a VPN connection set up, we give you the ability to set up 2 tunnels. If we take one of those down for maintenance or there's any issues on your side, it'll automatically fill over to that other tunnel. This is one where we actually go through and look, and you can see here that these actually have inactive VPN connections, but you'll also see if you're only configured for one VPN tunnel. So when we talk about the inactive VPN connections, this is potentially kind of merges with the cost savings opportunity, and this is something that we may talk about kind of moving into different sections as well. But again, you don't want to be paying for an actual VPN connection if you're not using it. RDS backups, very similar to EBS snapshots. Right here we don't actually have any to alarm on, but we have 5 RDS instances and all of them have backups enabled. I think that's about it on this page that I'd like to go over right now. We'll jump over to performance real quick. Overutilized EC2 instances, kind of on the flip side of the cost optimizing check that we have with underutilized. These are EC2 instances that we actually see are running at greater than 90% CPU utilization for at least 4 of the previous 14 days. And the reason that we came to that 4 of the previous 14 days is we try to look at customers' actual usage, and maybe they're using it on the weekends and not at all during the week, or vice versa. So that's how we kind of came to that decision to use those specific data points for the checks. So again, if you're running at over 90% utilization, you definitely have the potential to peak and see performance issues. If you are, if your application is such that you're consistently running at 90% and you're triggering and using auto-scaling groups to actually scale up and down, that may be less of an issue for you, and again, you could suppress that check. One of the other original checks that we kind of came out with here is the service limits check. And you can see right here that we have 55 service limits that 2 of which are over 80% capacity. And what's interesting about this check is there's no other place in AWS outside of your account manager that you can actually get details about the specific limits that are in place and your current usage on those. So we can see right here that we have a limit of 20 elastic IP addresses in EU West, and that we're currently only using 2. That may not be an issue, but on other situations where, say on-demand instances where we have a limit of 70, if we had a spike in traffic that we were expecting, and we were going to want to spin up 100 instances in the next 2 hours to avoid any type of performance issues during that spike, this is something that we would actually not be able to do currently. And by using Trusted Advisor and looking at the service limits check, we can know exactly what those limits are ahead of time to make sure that any promotions that we're running during Super Bowl or anything like that won't be actually slowed down or affected by a limit in place. Finally, the last 2 I'll go through here because they can be initially a little bit confusing with the name, is EC2 Security Group Rule Proliferation and EC2 Instance Security Group Rule Proliferation. What these rules are actually talking about, and again, you can hover over the informational icon here, you can run into performance issues if your EC2 instances have more than 100 rules in front of them, and in VPC more than 50 rules. What this specific check that I'm showing here does is, although there is a performance hit there, if you go into the actual console or are scripting this, you can create well more than 100 rules. We don't actually, it's not a hard limit that we will stop you at. Alternatively, this check down here will look at an instance layer, and if you have multiple security groups that total up over 100 rules or 50 rules for VPC, it will actually alarm you and let you know that there may be performance problems on that instance. And again, that's where you can look at being potentially a little less granular with your security group rules, and that's something that, if you're having any issues on your side, figuring out the best configuration there, the balance between performance and security, that's something that we're happy to discuss with you as well. So I think that pretty much sums up everything I wanted to go over.
Okay.
There's a feedback link at the top of Trusted Advisor. You can also share any feedback with us via this link that you have, with respect to your own account and the data that you see, as well as any other specific check-related requests you might have.
Yeah, and that's actually been fairly useful, and we've actually uncovered a lot of customer requirements and requests as a result of that. So the suppress one actually came out of feedback that we received from a number of customers, because they were like, it's great you're telling me this, but I've had enough of enough of it. It's not meaningful to me. So we do absolutely listen to the feedback, and there's also a contact support button. So obviously during the trial, if you don't have a paid subscription to support, either developer or a business, you're going to not be able to use that necessarily. Customer service is always available 24/7, but the actual technical support is gated by that. In terms of, let's put the question things up here. Yeah, so it's definitely something you can take advantage of once you are, a support customer. If you have any questions, you want to deep dive on any of these individual checks, just simply feel free to contact us. With the business level subscription, you can talk via chat or phone. It's a great way of just getting information on it. And honestly, just feel free to call us up and say, hey, can you run me through my Trusted Advisor report? The other great resource that you have to go through this report is through your SA and your account rep. So, again, if you want sort of a walkthrough and analysis of your current, AWS application and how it scores, absolutely feel free to reach out to your account rep and they'll set that meeting up. So I guess we're going to open it to questions now. So feel free to type in the box and we'll address as many as we can.
There's a question. I used to see cost optimizing recommendations in my consolidated billing account, but it now tells me to fill in a form for a custom report. Why is this? So just to be clear, within AWS there is a complex setup where you can have a payer account and a bunch of linked accounts. That's a billing relationship that we can have within AWS. For Trusted Advisor, there is one check, which is the RI check, the EC2 RI check. We only display that at the payer level because within the RI check, we do consume all the data for payer as well as linked accounts. And we leave it to the discretion of the payer account to determine how they want to disseminate that information across linked accounts. As far as the other 26 checks are concerned, we run them individually on each account, so you can pull up the report for all the 26 checks across, a specific either a payer or a linked account.
There's about 3 questions here that kind of merge together, so I'll kind of add all those at the same time. One, how much does premium support cost? How much does Trusted Advisor cost? And finally, what level of support grants access to TA we have developer currently? Forrest, you want to kind of answer that?
Yeah, so at any time you can go to the product page. So if you're on the AWS homepage in the upper right in support, you can see a link called Support Plans. And what it will take you to is basically our summary of the support plans and the different levels that you get. So the basic level is what everyone starts with. We'll give you access to support for health checks, for technical issues, as well as customer service and a bunch of others. Developer will give you a 12-hour response on web cases. And where Trusted Advisor comes in is at the business level and as well as the enterprise. Business level support starts at $100 a month as a minimum. So if you're just getting started in AWS and you don't have a tremendous amount of usage, that's the minimum that you'll pay. And as you cross over the threshold for $1,000 a month, then we start kicking in with a percentage, which is a decreasing amount as you increase your usage across the platform. So essentially, it's $100 plus some usage if you're a fairly high use account. Part of that, obviously, you get the phone, the chat. We'll also do some third-party application support, as well as access to Trusted Advisor. So that's the level that you would need in order to continue accessing your Trusted Advisor report.
Another question we wanted to answer here: are there any plans to offer an API for Trusted Advisor?
So we are launching Trusted Advisor API. We are in private beta as we speak, and I'll leave it to Forrest to answer on the public-facing part.
Yeah, sure. So it's in private beta, but honestly, we'll let anyone that is interested and committed to helping us, make it the best possible API. So right now, it's a mixture of case management, so you can create cases, update your correspondence, close the case off. And we just actually today, this morning, released the Trusted Advisor API calls, so you can actually get the details of your report and integrate them into your application. So, for example, the service limits one is a great check that you can just pull in individually, or you can pull in the entire report. If you would like to participate, then I encourage you to reach out to our customer service organization. So, go to the support center, open a case, select customer service, and just simply put in there, hi, I would like to participate in the support API private beta, and we'll get in touch with you and get your accounts whitelisted and a quick start guide once you sign the beta agreement. We are looking to move to a public API access in the future, so stay tuned for that as well.
Another question kind of on the billing front. How does Trusted Advisor work with consolidated billing? Do I have access to all my accounts paid for by my consolidated billing master?
So essentially, each account that you subscribe to support, so one of the misnomers that we hear a lot is I subscribe my payer account to business level, so does that mean it cascades all my linked accounts? Unfortunately, it does not. You would have to subscribe to business level support for each individual account. If you got hundreds of accounts, I absolutely encourage you to contact us. There's programs that we have to waive the minimum fees, with people with a large number of accounts. And essentially, any account that you have support subscription on will allow you to view your Trusted Advisor report. So obviously, during the month of March, you can do that today on any of your linked accounts. But just putting support on your payer account is not really going to do anything, particularly if you don't have any actual usage under that account. So you have no resources running under it. It's not going to be a lot of information we can provide to you. But anytime you just simply log into whatever account you want to look at your report for, and then go to the Support Center and the Trusted Advisor page, and it will show you the details for that individual account, with the one exception of the RI check, which rolls up to the payer.
There's a couple other questions that are coming in a little bit more specific to individual accounts. On those, we can actually follow up with you guys offline as well. One that I did want to, where did it go here? Oh, can you comment on the new features TA will add in the coming months or years?
I'm sorry.
So like we said, we have about 100 checks in the pipeline right now. What I would say, other than any specific checks, is we've identified areas for pretty much every single service that we have, if not multiple. And we're working on those. The process of actually building out a check is quite intense. We want to make sure that this is well thought out. And we're not just kind of throwing information out there. So we go back, we work with the individual service teams, we work with customers, we work with industry experts in security areas and things like that to make sure that the recommendations that we're making are actually the best recommendation that we can for the general public. And then again, we realize that in some situations we don't have the level of visibility into what you may be running on the actual OS itself, such as a firewall. And that's why we give the ability to suppress. So I don't know that we can have any specific checks that we can say are coming within the next week or month, but we do have checks that are being built out for every service that we have.
Yeah, just in terms of other feature functionality, I won't get into specifics, but anything to increase the timeliness and relevance of the Trusted Advisor report for your particular application we're going to be focusing on. So, custom thresholds, notifications, just various things to make TA relevant on a daily basis, and we're going to be focusing on.
Another question here, kind of interesting. Any thoughts on purchasing Trusted Advisor on demand?
I think it's an interesting question, and obviously we have some plans in the future. I'm not going to comment specifically on that, but we do believe that Trusted Advisor has a real value, and that's part of why we have it in the business level support package, because we do want people to be able to call us and chat and actually go through the report. So currently today, no, it's part of the package.
And just to kind of add on that is and again, I won't make any comments one way or another specifically on that, but we really do see this as kind of catch up for your French fries. This is something that you can work with a developer support engineer on our side. We encourage our customers to actually reach out to developer support. Because this is new for a lot of customers. They may not be used to running their applications in a cloud type environment, and they're going to have those questions about multi-availability zones and how to set up an ELB properly and architect their applications. And that's why we're here to help out.
There's a question, is there a way for consolidated accounts to get Trusted Advisor recommendations for all inclusive accounts? Since we are in the midst of launching Trusted Advisor API, we are not building out a web front end to get a consolidated account across Paired and Linked. we are assuming customers will go out and build their custom dashboards as they need using the API. If you do have a feature request along these lines, please do fill out the feedback form to send it our way.
I think kind of the final question we had come in here is do I need to buy premium support to enable this feature? So as Forrest kind of mentioned, this is during the month of March. This is free to all AWS customers. This is something that if you're looking to continue to use Trusted Advisor and get access to phone chat support with our developer support staff, you would need to move up to a business or enterprise support plan after that. I think that's about it. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, there's a couple specific account questions. We will take down your name and reach out to you and try to answer those questions specifically.
All right. Well, if that's all the questions for today, then we'll just go ahead and close it out. And if any more come in, well, after we close it out, we can contact you directly. So I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you to our presenters for a great webcast, and thanks for all your questions. Have a great day.